Whether you're an assassin, a thief, or an arcane trickster, the rogues are all about sneaking.
I am very, very sneaky, sir.
Today we're going to go through everything you need to know about this sneaky guy in Baldur's Gate 3. Let's go! Let me know in the comments how you're building your rogue, and these class guides are designed to teach you the mechanics of a class and everything you need to know to succeed. And we'll start with how to play the rogue. Now, these are the most stealth-based class of any of the classes. They also gain benefits from having great mobility because they can cast cunning actions. So as a bonus action, rather than an action, you can dash, hide, or engage. Plus, they have the sneak attacks, formula, and range, which give you an additional 1d6 of damage to any sneak attack, and sneak attacks always have advantage as well, so you're practically guaranteed to hit there, plus you get that extra damage. Astarion, the companion, is also a rogue, so if you're interested in how to build him out, then this video will help you with that as well. So the best race options for the rogue is really, you can pick anything for the role-playing purposes, but if you're planning to play a melee-focused rogue, say maybe dual-wielding some daggers or something, I would pay attention to the racial movement speed. So something like elf, tiefling, drow, human, gith, half-elf, dragonborn, or half-orc all have the standard movement speed of 9 meters compared to the shorter races, which have a shorter movement speed, which obviously means they can't go as far. And if you're trying to get into melee range, and that can sometimes be like a little bit of a hindrance, but you've obviously, with the rogue, you've got these cunning actions that you can cast, so you can still dash and then still attack in that same turn. As a ranged rogue, I would highly recommend something that has dark vision, and especially something like an elf that also gives you longbow proficiency. So all rogues will have shortbow and crossbow proficiencies because they're simple weapons, but an elf will also get longbows, and there's some great longbow options in the game, so it gives you more flexibility for those range options, and dark vision, so you can actually see in the dark because there are plenty of places in the game that are dark. And you could even go, say, like a drow, which has superior dark vision as well, so that dark vision distance is actually doubled, which means it makes it so much easier to hit enemies when you are in that sort of medium to long range and in those dark areas, so you'll have a higher chance of actually hitting. The best skills for the rogue are the dexterity based skills, so you've got acrobats, sleight of hand for all your lockpicking, and stealth. And especially stealth, I highly recommend that you not only stay proficient in stealth, but actually pick it as one of your expertise. So as a rogue, you can gain expertise in 2 skills, which will double your proficiency bonus. I would recommend to grab sleight of hand for this, so you've got extra proficiency for lockpicking as well as stealth, so you can trigger stealth in combat. Even when enemies are looking at you, you can actually pass a stealth check to actually get off your sneak attacks. As long as you're not in like melee range, it's actually really powerful. Your background is more role-playing sort of choices, but in terms of the dexterity-based skills here, you've got the charlatan, the criminal, and the urchin, but you can honestly pick whatever you like. For ability points, you do want to focus on dexterity as your primary. Constitution is also important for the hit points, but less so. But the one thing I will call out here is that if you are going to play an arcane trickster subclass, then intelligence is important, as that is your spellcasting modifier, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. The leveling up process for the rogue is pretty similar regardless of the subclass choice you pick, in that you always gain the cunning actions and some of the other class benefits that you do get. It's just that at level 3, you will pick a subclass. Now, the differences between the subclasses here is thief, arcane trickster, and assassin. As a thief, you'll gain fast hands to give you an additional bonus action, as well as second story work, so you can fall without taking damage. The arcane trickster is like the mage focused subclass, so you'll gain access to some spells, as well as the mage hand cantrip, which is not good / broken at the moment in the game. So as this subclass, the mage hand, when you cast it, is supposed to be a spectral hand, which is invisible, and it can carry out additional tasks. Those additional tasks don't actually work in the game right now, and I don't know exactly what that's supposed to be. Like typically, it could be like lockpicking, that sort of a thing, but you can't really do anything like that with the mage hand, and the mage hand can only be cast once per short rest, which makes it much more less effective, and it only lasts 10 turns, which actually isn't a very long time when you're just like playing the game in real time. Like it'll just disappear randomly after you've barely done anything with it. So the arcane trickster as a whole probably isn't in a good spot right now. Maybe if they fix the mage hand, it might be a little bit better. But the last subclass is the assassin subclass, and this specializes in attacking from stealth out of combat. So you gain advantage on attack rolls against creatures that haven't had their turn yet. If you successfully trigger an ambush on a surprise creature, it's always a critical hit. And if you start combat from this position as well, you'll also regain your action and bonus action at the start of combat combat. I originally started Astarion as sort of my rogue setup as an assassin, but I ended up switching back to thief because while the benefits to the assassin and being able to trigger combat from that stealth position and gaining all of those benefits is definitely a positive, the bonus action that you gain from the thief is just significantly better because of the cunning action to hide. You can essentially hide every turn and then use your sneak attack in combat, but then you can also then dash if you wanted to move around. You could attack with an offhand weapon. You could stealth again so you can't actually get attacked because, you know, enemies can't see you. But that bonus action that you get from thief is just so powerful that you can't really go wrong with it, especially with the issues with the arcane trickster and then just the assassin not being as flexible as the thief can be. But I have chosen to bring Astarion into sort of a ranged stealth option with the thief and sort of focusing on stealthing in combat and then using those ranged attacks and then potentially doing some melee if I need to because I'm dual wielding weapons, so I can do some offhand attacks. And that's sort of the direction I've taken Astarion, and it's been really, really successful. Continuing the level up process, at level 4, you'll pick your first feat, and depending on whether you're going melee or ranged, then you've got a couple of options here. If you're going ranged, sharpshooter is a huge benefit here. So your ranged weapon attacks do not receive penalties for high ground rules, and ranged weapon attacks with weapons you are proficient in have a -5 penalty to their attack roll, but deal an additional 10 damage. Now, if you are attacking from stealth, you already have advantage on that attack roll, plus obviously the extra damage you get from stealth. So if you trigger this all-in effect as well, you are practically still guaranteed to hit that shot, especially if you're hitting it from high ground. So you just get an extra 10 damage for free without having to do anything else. So it's a massive buff to range damage. Now, you won't really make a lot of choices as a rogue when you do level up. You'll just get a lot of class features for just leveling up and increasing your HP. But at level 8, you will pick another feat. Now, I would go either something like lightly armored or ability improvement here to get your dexterity up to 18, depending on what your actual stats are, but just trying to get that to the next positive number is probably the important thing there. But athlete is another good option for that, so you get that extra dexterity as well. But for a melee rogue, you've got mobiles to increase your movement speed, as well as avoiding some opportunity attacks is definitely a positive for a sort of melee focused rogue. And then again, at level 8, when you pick but for your second feat, it's still the same. You want to get that additional benefits to your dexterity and try and hit it into that next big bracket. Some tips for playing the rogue. Sneak attack is so strong, and it is the critical part of the rogue's kit, and you should be using it as often as possible, whether that is to start combat or even in combat by using your cunning action to hide and then triggering the stealth attack. Something that you can do outside of combat is just have your rogue in stealth all the time, and they'll just sort of lag behind the party. So if the party gets like surprised, then the rogue actually won't be in combat. It just because it'll be lagging behind because it's walking slower because of stealth. So you'll have that time to be able to line them up to wherever you want to attack from. And then also the same as like conversations. If you're in a conversation that you think may break out in combat, you can character select your other characters, put them in hiding, set them up before you actually trigger the combat encounter. If you do have a bonus action left over at the end of your turn, you can use it to hide again so that enemies won't attack you, so you can avoid damage coming towards them. And occasionally, sometimes enemies will actually like use their turn to try and find Astarion or whatever your rogue is. I've noticed that happen a couple of times, so they waste their turn just like running around trying to find where the rogue went. Speaking of the rogue Astarion, if you aren't going the arcane trickster subclass, I definitely recommend going to Withers and respecking him. Stay as like the class the rogue, but you want to change his ability points because it will allow you to hear, because there's a lot of wasted ability points for Astarion if you're not going an arcane trickster, because he has a high amount of intelligence, which makes sense from like a role-playing perspective, but from a min-max perspective, it doesn't make sense when you can put those points into dexterity or constitution or something and actually give him benefits from that intelligence, which you're not getting unless you're going the arcane trickster, because as an arcane trickster, intelligence is your spell casting modifier. Also, make sure that any weapons that you're using, like melee weapons, have the finesse trait so that they are able to scale with dexterity rather than strength. And dual wielding is super important for a rogue, so you can use your offhand attack as a bonus action, so you can get multiple attacks off as you don't gain an extra attack like some of the other sort of melee focused classes do. That's the way you can get extra attacks off. But let me know your thoughts on the rogue in the comments down below. Thank you guys for watching this video till the end. Thank you to our members for supporting the channel. My name is Norza, and I hope you have a great day.